Alright, welcome to the 2020 Mega Awesome Dynasty Mock Draft video. I will be giving my predictions on how I think the first 3 rounds of our rookie draft are going to play out, and provide my reasoning behind each pick, as well as provide some analysis of the prospects. Prior to announcing the pick, let's take a look at the first round draft order and how we got here. Das now has 4 picks in the first round and the 2.1. He had 6 first round picks at one time. The 1-1 pick is his original pick. He obtained the 1-2 and last year's 1-5 in exchange for David Johnson from Howie's Hustlers. The 1-3 is only one of 3 picks in the first round to not change hands and stays with the original owner. D's just obtained the 1-4 from Huck for Leonard Fournette and a 2021 third round pick. The 1-5 stays with Spiteful Messiahs. The 6th pick was traded by last year's owner Ron Cherick to Das in exchange for Bobby Wagner and the 3-8. Das obtained the 1-7, 2-7, and 8-7 from last year's owner Paul Jackson in exchange for Adrian Peterson, Allen Robinson, and a 2020 12th and 13th round pick, and then flipped that 1-7 to D's in exchange for Deshaun Watson. Das also obtained the 1-8 for last year's 2019 picks 2-10 and 2-11. D's obtained the 1-9 from Crown Royal Knights straight up for stealing Darius Geis from Crown's Taxi Squad. D's then traded his 1-10 third place pick to fuck Paul Jackson for this year's 2-9 and 2-10. The Crows stay at 11 for now, but could trade back into the second round if someone wanted to come up depending on who was available at 11. Finally, Das obtained the 1-12 and D.D. Westbrook from Kicker Lover in exchange for Travis Kelce, and then just traded it to D's for Sam Hubbard and 2 2021 second round picks. And now we should be all caught up on how the first round came to be. 1-1, Das Raiderhawk. Before I announce the pick, let's take a look at their roster and team needs. Das needs everything. He needs 3 running backs, 1 to 2 wide receivers. Although those wide receivers are pretty good right now with Boyd, A.J. Brown, Diggs, and Westbrook, he needs a defensive end, a pair of linebackers, and a safety. I'm going to let Das announce his own pick.
With the first pick in the 2020 Mega Awesome Dynasty Rookie Draft, Das Raiderhawk takes Clyde Edwards, hell yeah, running back, Kansas City Chiefs.
Hilaire was also the first running back taken in the real NFL draft by the Kansas City Chiefs, which is one of the reasons why he is the consensus 1-1. Everyone wants a piece of that high-octane Kansas City offense. He easily has the best landing spot of all rookie running backs in this draft class. What makes Edwards Hilaire the consensus 1-1? He is 5'7", 207 pounds. He has 4.5 speed, so he has the ability to outrun you, but he also has the size and ability to run between the tackles, and he is so dangerous in the receiving game. He is a more athletic version of Austin Eckler. He is about 3 inches shorter than LaShawn McCoy and Christian McCaffrey, but is about the same weight. I'm not suggesting he is either one of those 2 guys, but he has the potential to be. Other more popular comparisons for him are MJD and Ray Rice. As I mentioned, he is a great PPR pass-catching running back out of the backfield and can also split out wide in the slot. He is an absolute mismatch against linebackers. The only knock on him is his pass blocking, but you want him running routes on third down and not pass blocking, so it's not a huge deal. 1-2, Das Raiderhawk. With his second pick, owner Justin Sanderson has already announced that he is taking Indianapolis Colts running back out of Wisconsin, Jonathan Taylor. He is 5'10", 225 pounds. Jonathan Taylor finished his college career with the 6th most rushing yards in NCAA history. The 5 running backs who finished ahead of him did it in 4 seasons, while he rushed for over 6,000 yards in just 3. He finished less than 1,000 yards away from the all-time leader. He also had 50 career rushing touchdowns and had a 6.7 yards per carry average, despite facing defenses every week committed to stopping him. He had a college dominator score of 41.8 in the 93rd percentile. He ran a 4.39 40 at the combine and was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts in the second round. He has drawn some comparisons to Ezekiel Elliott, Nick Chubb, Arian Foster, and Lamar Miller. He has both speed and power, which allows him to blast through tackles and then break away with speed, and also has tremendous contact balance. Once he hits top speed in the open field, there is no catching him. The 3 biggest knocks on Taylor are his fumbling, his wear and tear, and his lack of receiving yards. He fumbled the ball 18 times in 41 games on 926 carries. The 926 carries are also concerning because in addition to his 42 receptions, he touched the ball 968 times. That was an average of about 23.6 carries per game. In comparison, J.K. Dobbins had 796 touches over 42 games, Cam Akers had 655 touches in 36 games, and DeAndre Swift only touched the ball 513 times over 43 games. Those other three backs had more receptions and less hammering the ball down the middle. The concern is that the wear and tear on Taylor's body will impact his future in the NFL. His lack of receiving yards is less his fault and more about how he was used at Wisconsin. Although he had 42 receptions in 3 seasons, 26 of those came in his last year. Fellow Wisconsin alum Melvin Gordon had similar criticisms coming out of college and is now one of the best receiving backs in the NFL. Taylor also has year 1 competition for touches with Marlon Mack and third down back Nyheim Hines. 1-3. Fuck Paul Jackson. Let's take a look at his roster and team needs quick, and we'll see he needs a quarterback, 1 to 2 running backs, 1 to 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 1 to 2 linebackers, and a safety. Owner Taylor Tubbs isn't happy about Jonathan Taylor coming off the board, and rather than picking another one of the top 5 running backs in this draft class, he decides to take the number 1 overall wide receiver from the Dallas Cowboys out of Oklahoma, CeeDee Lamb. Lamb was selected as the 3rd wide receiver in the NFL draft by the Dallas Cowboys at pick 117. He's 6'2", 198 pounds. Lamb was productive immediately at Oklahoma with 807 yards and 7 touchdowns in 2017, which were both Oklahoma freshman receiving records. He then broke out in his sophomore season with 60 receptions for 1,100 yards and had 10 touchdowns in both his second and third seasons. He finished his college career with over 3,300 total yards and 33 touchdowns in 40 games across 3 seasons. His college dominator score was in the 76th percentile. His best skill is easily his insane body control, the way he is able to contort his body to make spectacular catches. Because of his impressive body control and vice grip hands, I would compare him to DeAndre Hopkins. Lamb is dominant in contested catch situations, winning at the point of the catch, tracking the ball downfield, and can be dangerous with the ball in his hands, and can elude defenders with angry running and 4.5 speed. 1-4. D's nuts. If we look at his team needs, we notice that his biggest team need is a quarterback, and he also needs wide receiver help. D's takes the 2nd best wide receiver in this draft class, Denver Broncos wide receiver out of Alabama, Jerry Jeudy. Jerry is 6'1", 193 pounds out of Alabama and drafted by the Denver Broncos at pick 115. Jeudy broke out his sophomore season at Alabama after Calvin Ridley entered the NFL and Tua took over at quarterback. His 2018 season ended with him winning the Blitnikoff Award as the best receiver in college football as a true sophomore. He was again strong in 2019, although it was a bit of a step back from his great sophomore season. There were a lot of mouths to feed in that Alabama offense, so that is why his college dominator score is only in the 35th percentile. His best NFL comparison is Calvin Ridley, and not just because they are both from Alabama. They are both fantastic route runners. There may not be a better route runner in this draft class than Jeudy. Another good comp for him is Jeremy Maclin. He has the ability to cut and stop on a dime. His foot quickness is tremendous, and it allows him to separate from press coverage despite lacking physicality in his game. As a technician, he is as pro-ready as it gets, and he has the ability to run the full route tree. His biggest weaknesses are his lack of physicality, which can sometimes allow him to get redirected in press coverage, and also impacts his ability to win contested catches despite having great hands. He will definitely benefit from having Courtland Sutton on the other side of the field, in much the same way Ridley has benefited from having Julio on the other side of the field. He will also benefit from the presence of Noah Fant and the run game from Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay. The real question here is whether or not Drew Lock is the real deal. He sure looked like it down the stretch last season, but rest assured if he's not, Elway won't hesitate to bring in someone else, so I believe Jeudy's long-term success will be just fine. 1-5. Spiteful Messiahs. Owner Matt Ron needs a quarterback, 1 to 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a defensive end, and a linebacker. So with the 5th pick, he addresses his linebacker need. Owner Matt Ron knows his linebackers are getting old and he doesn't have much depth. Levante David is 30 and Demario Davis is 31. Last year, Matt drafted LSU linebacker Devin White at 1-3. This year, he goes back to LSU at 1-5 and selects Baltimore Ravens linebacker Patrick Queen. Queen is 6 foot, 229 pounds, and runs the 40 in 4.5, which is in the 96th percentile. His NFL comparison is Levante David. On the field, he plays a lot like the aforementioned Telvin Smith. The Ravens needed a 3-down middle linebacker to step in, and Queen fills that need perfectly. Queen was drafted 20 picks behind Isaiah Simmons and was the 4th linebacker taken in the draft behind Simmons, Murray, and Brooks. He has great range and looks comfortable in coverage. He processes plays quickly and then reacts with his speed and acceleration. He has great hips and lateral movement and is effective in stopping the run. They have been searching for a middle linebacker since C.J. Mosley left. The downside to Queen and possible reason that he falls in some drafts is that he is a bit undersized and only started 1 season at LSU. However, Baltimore might be the best landing spot of all the rookie linebackers. 1-6, Das Raderhawk. After going back-to-back running backs at 1-1 and 1-2, Das comes back here and attacks the other side of the ball. If Lamb or Jeudy drops to him here, we may see him take one of those wide receivers instead, but knowing that he still has one more pick in the first round after this, and the 2-1, he's not really worried about getting all of his offense out of the way in this incredibly deep draft class. Das is heartbroken because I think he would have taken Patrick Queen here had he not went to Spiteful Messiah's 1 pick earlier, but he decides to take the next best linebacker available, Los Angeles Chargers linebacker Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma. Murray is 6'3" and weighs in at 241 pounds. Murray has tremendous size and speed. He ran the 40 in 4.52, which is in the 93rd percentile. He has a speed score of 115.5, 94th percentile, and a burst score of 129.1, 92nd percentile. One of his NFL comparisons is Demario Davis. Murray makes plays with reckless abandon and intensity. He covers an immense amount of ground quickly and rarely misses a tackle. He is a big hitter and has the ability to change the trajectory of a game in one play. He is always around the ball whether he makes the play or not, and can also play in coverage. The knock on him is that while he can play in coverage, he can lose against top-tier NFL talent. The other downside is that Gus Bradley has a sometimes frustrating approach to use of multiple linebackers, but the fact that they traded up to get him at great cost could mean that will no longer be the case. They have been looking for a true middle linebacker for some time, and I think they found him. Murray once had 28 tackles in 1 game against Army. 1-7, D's nuts. D's is now on the clock for his 2nd of 4 picks in the first round. D's does not have many needs. His number 1 team need is quarterback and also needs wide receiver help. Since he already got a wide receiver and he still has 2 more first round picks and 4 second round picks, D's takes a running back even though he is already stacked at the position. Baltimore Ravens running back out of Ohio State, J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins is 5'10", 209 pounds out of Ohio State. He was selected in the 2nd round by the Baltimore Ravens and looks to be the long-term replacement for Mark Ingram, who is already 30. Dobbins was an extremely productive running back across the board in college as both a rusher and a receiver. He topped 1,000 rushing yards and 20 receptions in each of his 3 seasons, which is incredible. A good NFL comparison for him would be Josh Jacobs. They are both plus pass catchers, demonstrate great contact balance and vision, and run with power and agility. Dobbins has excellent vision and contact balance and does just about everything well. He is a great receiver out of the backfield and runs decent routes and is dangerous with the ball in the open field. If he does have a weakness, it is definitely in his pass protection, which is often typical for rookie running backs. He understands pass protection and can identify his assignments, but he lacks consistency in his execution. Also, despite doing many things well, he isn't necessarily elite at any of them. That should not stop you from drafting this phenom primed to succeed in the NFL. The 1-8, Das Raderhawk. This pick is tough for Das. On one hand, if you had told owner Justin Sanderson that he would be able to get DeAndre Swift at 1-8 in this draft, he never would have believed you. On the other hand, I think his plan might have been to draft 2 running backs in the first and 2 linebackers in the first. His linebacker group is really bad, and one of his best linebackers, Thomas Davis, is 37 in a row. However, I think the linebacker plan hit a snag when he lost out on Queen. He needs wide receivers too, but this wide receiver class is so deep that he can get a solid wide receiver at 2-1 and 3-8. So do you go 3 running backs or 2 linebackers? Tough call. I originally had him taking Swift here and almost changed it to Simmons, but I'm going to stay with Swift. Swift was his RB1 before the draft, and he needs insurance on these rookies, and Swift falling to 8 is a crime, But that is how deep this first round is, and Swift's ADP has fallen. Although he has already drafted Hilaire and Taylor, he doesn't hesitate to pull the trigger on his pre-NFL draft 1-1 pick. Detroit Lions running back out of Georgia, DeAndre Swift. Swift is 5'8", 212 pounds, and was drafted in the second round by the Detroit Lions. Number 2. Everyone tells me that their biggest problem with the landing spot is that Detroit is where running backs go to die. My reaction is always, until the one time it isn't. Sure, Detroit has only had 4 1,000-yard rushers since Barry left, and only 1 1,000-yard rusher since 2004. But that's not really a fair assessment. We can really only judge the Detroit running game on what has happened since Matt Patricia got there, and even then only after Darrell Bevell came in last season and changed the offense that Jim Bob Cooter was running, and the sample size isn't big enough. I think Kerryon could have eclipsed that mark had he not gotten hurt in each of the last 2 seasons. Kerryon was on pace to break 1,000 yards last season under new offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell, who has only been there since January of 2019 and has only had 1 season under his belt, so how can we compare his offense to the Detroit offense since Barry left? Bevell was able to produce 1,000-yard rushers with Minnesota 4 times Adrian Peterson and the Seattle Seahawks 4 times Marshawn Lynch. Bevell has produced 8 1,000-yard seasons. The only obstacle to Swift getting to 1,000 yards in his first year or 2 will likely be the timeshare he is in with Kerryon Johnson. Kerryon will still be involved in the game plan. Swift doesn't have the crazy college production that Jonathan Taylor had, but not only did Swift have to share a backfield with Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, but the Georgia coach has said publicly that he gives his players a chance to showcase their stuff without overworking them on their way to the NFL, unlike Jonathan Taylor and his 900 carries. However, he still managed to rush for 2,885 yards on 440 carries in 3 seasons with a 6.6 yards per carry average and 20 career rushing touchdowns. Imagine what Swift could have done with Taylor's college volume, considering that their per carry average was the same, but he had half the attempts Taylor had. Swift was a more productive college receiving back than Taylor, and both Chubb and Michel catching a career 73 receptions for 666 yards and 5 touchdowns. This translates to more PPR points than Taylor, who will be unlikely to get Hines off the field on 3rd downs. He has some player comparisons to Arian Foster, Dalvin Cook, Kenyon Drake, and Miles Sanders. He has tremendous vision and elusiveness. He is an incredibly patient runner and has the burst to hit the hole and the 4.48 speed to hit the second level. He has great instincts and lets his blocks develop. The biggest knock on Swift, other than his landing spot, is that he doesn't possess the same level of contact balance as some of the other top backs in this class, and he runs too upright and needs to lower his pad level. One more note on the 1-8. If Das went Isaiah Simmons here, no one could fault him for that. 1-9. These nuts is on the clock again with his 3rd pick. Because this is still too early for him to grab a quarterback, owner D'Angelo Ramos doubles down on wide receiver and selects Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson out of LSU. Jefferson is 6'1", 202 pounds, and runs the 40 in 4.43. He is very comparable to Reggie Wayne, who was 6 foot, 203 pounds, and ran the 40 in 4.45. He also draws a lot of comparisons to Marvin Jones. They can both play in the slot and outside. They have a similar body type. Neither wide receiver will blow you away with their athleticism, but they are more than athletic enough to compete at the NFL level. He becomes a nightmare after the catch and has the speed to score from anywhere on the field. If he gets a clean release off the line of scrimmage, he's a threat to blow by the defensive back that's in front of him. He does a really good job of switching up his speed while running his routes. There are times where he will slow down his route to bait the defender, and there are other times where he will kick it into top gear to stretch the defense. He can struggle in press coverage and get rerouted when he has hands in his chest. His 102 receptions in 2019 set a school record and ranks 3rd all-time in SEC history. He had 10 games with over 100 yards receiving and 21 games with 5 catches or more. He led the team with a 23.21% target share, and 37.25% of his touches went for 15 yards or more. 110. Fuck Paul Jackson. With his 2nd pick in the 1st round, after taking CeeDee Lamb at 1-3, owner Taylor Tubbs gets his much-needed running back here at 10. He selects Los Angeles Rams running back Cam Akers out of Florida State. Akers is 5'10" and weighs 217 pounds. He was selected in the second round by the Los Angeles Rams. Akers is the running back 5 in this draft class, but it's unclear if he is the last Tier 1 running back or the first Tier 2 running back. He closely compares to Marlon Mack or a slightly bigger and more explosive version of Aaron Jones. Both are efficient between the tackles and can grind out tough yards. Akers is slightly faster than Jones and ran a 4.47 40 and has a speed score in the 89th percentile. His attacking run style is a cross between Marshawn Lynch and Dalvin Cook, another FSU alum. Akers suffered from one of the worst offensive lines in college football. FSU's line allowed Akers to be hit at or behind the line of scrimmage on a class-high 31% of his runs and open up a class-low 0.57 yards blocked per rush, and he still managed to rush for almost 1,150 yards with a 5 yards per carry average and 14 touchdowns in his last year. In 2019, Akers avoided 74 tackles and 904 of his 1,142 yards came after contact. Both were among the highest in the nation. While Akers created 4.37 yards on his own per rush, only 8th best in this running back class, his inside running ability is the worst of the top 5, with only 3.24 yards created on inside runs, while his 8.15 yards created on outside runs is the best in this class. As a receiver, Akers is fluid and explosive after the catch. Only Eno Benjamin and Clyde Edwards-Hilaire saw more targets per game in the 2020 class than Akers. Akers is a decent pass protector and was often left to pick up the slack of FSU's line to keep the quarterback upright. His biggest weakness is his ball security. He fumbled the ball 8 times over 2 seasons, but one has to wonder if part of that again was attributed to horrible blocking. 111. Crows. The Crows have several team needs, including running back, a pair of wide receivers, tight end, defensive end, and a linebacker. The Crows are not pleased to see that the last of the top 5 running backs to come off the board, 1 pick in front of them, and since there are no running backs left worthy of a first-round pick, with his pick, our second-place finisher from last year and Commissioner Todd Tubbs selects Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver out of Clemson, T. Higgins. Higgins is 6'4", 218 pounds, and runs to 40 in 4.59. Higgins also had a breakout age of 18.6, which is in the 96th percentile. He draws some comparisons to both Allen Robinson and Dez Bryant due to his strong hands and ability to post up on and bully defenders at the catch point. Like both of those wide receivers, he isn't going to blow you away with athleticism, but he can make highlight reel plays while contested by extending his arms and using his strong hands. He attacks the ball in transit and catches everything thrown his way. His hands are as sticky as they come. After the catch, he secures the ball and moves upfield. He can be a little stiff getting in and out of breaks and needs to improve his route running. He and fellow rookie Joe Burrow can be very dangerous together for years to come. In all honesty, the Crows should probably look to trade back into the second round and let someone else come up to get a guy they want. 112. D's Nuts. With his 4th and final pick in the first round, D's selects Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver out of TCU, Jalen Reagor. Despite already getting the 2nd and 4th best wide receivers in this draft class, D's needs wide receivers, and now he has the opportunity to add the 3rd best wide receiver in this draft class as well. Reagor is 5'11" and 206 pounds and runs to 40 in 4.47. Dynasty League Football staff writer Stephen Gill's wide receiver breakout model predicts that Reagor has the highest probability of all wide receivers in this draft class to break out with a score of 83.5%. Reagor broke out as a true freshman at 18.7 years old, 95th percentile for breakout age, when he caught 33 passes for 576 yards and 8 touchdowns. He followed that up with a tremendous sophomore season, amassing 1,231 scrimmage yards and 11 touchdowns before having a down season in 2019 due to awful quarterback play. He is about the same size as Christian Kirk but plays more like Percy Harvin. Their similarities are extensive. They are both explosive athletes that are a threat to take any touch to the end zone. Harvin and Reagor both have experience as return man and could line up both inside and outside as receivers. Harvin was used far more extensively as a rusher, but Reagor has the ability to do that as well. Reagor is just dynamic. His speed, combined with his acceleration, is rare. He has great athleticism and has a great leaping ability. Philadelphia is a perfect landing spot for him, and he has the path to immediate production. A top 24 wide receiver 2 is definitely possible as a rookie and has career top 10 potential. That is the end of the first round. 2-1, Das Raiderhawk. With the first pick of the second round, owner Justin Sanderson goes back to wide receiver here. While this may appear to be a homer pick, I don't necessarily know that he likes Ruggs all that much, but his value at 2-1 is hard to ignore. By the way, I can't believe Ruggs made it out of the first round considering that 8 of the 12 first-round picks were held by Raiders fans. This pick could easily be Michael Pittman or Brandon Aiyuk. I believe he cannot pass up on the first wide receiver taken in the NFL draft and one of his Las Vegas Raiders, Henry Ruggs out of Alabama. He is 5'11" and 188 pounds and ran a blistering 4.2740 at the combine. He also has a speed score in the 90th percentile and a burst score in the 98th percentile. At 112, he was the first wide receiver taken in the NFL draft and has the draft capital to see early production in the NFL. The Raiders are in need of someone to step up at wide receiver and make some plays. I'm sure John Gruden is salivating over ways to get Ruggs involved in the offense. Ruggs was never the lead guy in Alabama, and we can see from his stats that he never topped 750 yards receiving in a single season. He had several huge games, but his impact was felt beyond just his stats. Of course, due to his speed, he draws a lot of comparisons to the aforementioned Tyreek Hill and John Ross. He is a more polished player than John Ross, and he may be more comparable to Deshaun Jackson than Tyreek Hill. He forces cornerbacks to respect him with his deep speed and his ability to get to top speed very quickly and blow by defenders. He is a solid route runner and has tremendous ability to track the deep ball and can adjust his body and his hands to make tough catches. He plays with a swagger that is reminiscent of Deshaun Jackson. Due to his lean frame and physicality, press coverage can sometimes give him some trouble. The biggest question for Ruggs is whether he is D-Jax or Tyreek Hill, or if he's John Ross, or worse, Corey Coleman. Time will tell. Hopefully it's the former. 2-2, Howie's Hustlers. With his first pick in this draft, owner Owen Howard has had his draft card pre-filled out and couldn't hand it in fast enough to select Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa out of Alabama. Tua is 6 foot and 217 pounds. Tua broke onto the scene on the biggest and brightest of stages as a true freshman in 2017. Having played sparingly in the regular season, he stepped up in relief of struggling Jalen Hurts in the national championship game versus Georgia to deliver the game-winning touchdown pass in overtime to bring home the title. He only went on to become one of the most prolific passers in Alabama history, while sitting out many fourth quarters and an injury-shortened junior campaign. The two comps I've seen the most are Russell Wilson and Drew Brees. He's more Brees than Wilson with regard to how he processes the game and wins from the pocket. He lacks the rushing upside of Wilson, but can extend plays with his legs. However, nobody really wants to see that from Tua moving forward. He has a high football IQ and is a very accurate passer. He is a surgeon from the pocket. He delivers a very tight ball with fantastic placement. He can accurately throw the ball in all quadrants of the field on all 3 levels. His ability to process information and progress through his reads is probably the best in his class, and maybe the best we've seen from a quarterback prospect in the last couple of years. He's a natural leader, someone you won't have to worry about putting in the work to get better and improve. Tua leaves Alabama with at least 11 school records. Single-season passing yards, 3,966 in 2018. Single-game touchdown passes, 6 against Ole Miss. Single-season touchdown passes, 43 last year. And career touchdown passes, 87. Career touchdowns responsible for, 96. Career 300-yard passing games, 10. And career 4-touchdown games, 12. The biggest concern with him moving forward is going to be his injury history. He's dealt with multiple ankle injuries that required him to have the much spotlighted tightrope surgery to help aid in the recovery of his high ankle sprains. Tua dislocated his hip in a game versus Mississippi State on November 16, 2019. While it's possible that Fitzpatrick will begin the season as the starter, I'm sure we'll see Tua at some point. 2-3, Fuck Paul Jackson. A quick reminder of his team roster reveals that he still needs a quarterback. So with the second straight quarterback off the board, Taylor Tubbs selects Cincinnati quarterback Joe Burrow out of LSU. Burrow is 6'4" and 221 pounds. Burrow had a legend, wait for it, Derry senior season, throwing for 60 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions while completing an NCAA record 76.3% of his passes on his way to a national championship. Speaking of Jameis Winston, Burrow is comparable in size, but plays a little bit more like Aaron Rodgers. He's not a quick runner, but he is elusive, has good footwork, and senses pressure like Rodgers. He may not have a deep ball like Rodgers, but he has a strong arm and can make the throws to all levels of the field. He also maintains a level head and nothing rattles him. He maintains his composure and always keeps his head downfield and takes what the defense gives him. His decision-making and cool head are what separate him from the others, as well as his bravado, which he has plenty of. The knock on him is that he is a one-year wonder, much like Mitchell Trubisky, so he doesn't have a ton of starting experience. He doesn't have any elite physical traits. He doesn't have a cannon like Eason or Love. He has great accuracy but lacks the touch of Tua, and he doesn't have the experience like Herbert. 2-4. I'm your Huckleberry. I know owner Sterling Kessinger had hoped that Burrow would fall to him in the second round, but he just traded for Carson Wentz and quarterback is no longer a pressing team need for him. Huck needs linebacker depth and nabs the last of the 3 big linebackers, Arizona Cardinals linebacker out of Clemson, Isaiah Simmons. Simmons is 6'4", 238 pounds, and ran a ridiculous 4.39 40-yard dash, which is in the 100th percentile. His speed score is also in the 100th percentile, and his burst is in the 96th percentile. Simmons is a versatile Swiss Army weapon. The Cardinals say they plan to use him mostly at linebacker, but his true IDP value comes from his ability to line up all over the field and play multiple positions. He has the movement and the speed to cover tight ends and running backs. He can slide in the slot or drop back and play safety. He can rush the quarterback from the outside linebacker position and can tackle sideline to sideline with his elite speed. He has a rare blend of athleticism and football acumen and will be on the field close to 100% of the time. He has the potential to finish as a top 12 linebacker or LB1 several times in his career, and that is why many Dynasty analysts consider him to be the #1 linebacker in this draft class. He has a safe floor due to his tackles and a super high ceiling due to his ability to create turnovers and get sacks. Imagine a floor of 8 tackles per game, which in our league translates to 16 points per game, but the ability in any week to add a forced fumble, 1 or 2 sacks, an interception, or a touchdown, and his ceiling is over 20 points per game, which you would love to get out of a running back, let alone a linebacker. By the way, if he averaged 20 points per game last season, that would have made him the highest scoring linebacker in our league last year. There is just too many ways for him to score. 2-5. Spiteful Messiahs. Owner Matt Ron addresses another team need by selecting Indianapolis Colts wide receiver out of USC, Michael Pittman. While Brandon Aiyuk could be an option here, Michael Pittman is also a very talented wide receiver that could be a potential first-round dynasty pick in almost any other year. Pittman is 6'4", 223 pounds, and runs a 4.52 40. He has great metrics, including a 93rd percentile in speed score and an 89th percentile in catch radius. Pittman might have the strongest hands in this year's draft class. He can easily pluck the ball out of the air. His large catch radius makes him an easy target. His ball skills are a major strength, and he does a good job of tracking the ball while it's in the air, while using his size, combined with his body control, to block out the defender to get into position to make the grab. He's good at contested catches, and drops are definitely not an issue with him. He's not very flashy after the catch, since he doesn't possess elite level speed. He's fast enough to get downfield, but his lack of change of direction skills, stacked with his limited speed, doesn't make him the most elusive wide receiver after the catch. He needs to build up to get to full speed, and after that, he still needs some space to have a chance to pull away from the entire defense. Faster defensive backs with good pursuit angles will catch him from behind. When it comes to his release, Pittman does what you would expect him to do for a player of his size. He's physical and moves defenders around when facing press coverage. He has an excellent jab step to stack the defender before generating his next move. As of right now, he's not a diverse route runner, but he does a good job of snapping off his routes. He's assertive when it comes to getting in and out of his breaks. His urgency allows him to create separation at the top of the routes. Overall, he is a solid possession receiver with elite-level ball skills. His my ball mentality at the catch point can make him a difference maker against smaller, less aggressive defenders. 2-6. Win, lose, or booze. Welcome to the league, Kenny Williams. A look at his roster shows team needs of quarterback, running back, wide receiver, 2 linebackers, and a pair of safeties. With his first pick as a brand new owner of the old relentless end zone penetration team, Mr. Williams selects Tampa Bay Buccaneers running back Keyshawn Vaughn out of Vanderbilt. Vaughn was drafted in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. He is 5'10 and 214 pounds. He ran a 4.51 40 at the combine. Both his 40 and speed score are in the 74th percentile. His college dominator rating is in the 90th percentile. One of his perceived strengths is his landing spot, which I'll touch on in a second. He has deceptive versatility. His weaknesses are that he lacks elusiveness, has a potential limited ceiling, and is already old for a rookie at 23. Vaughn transferred to Vanderbilt after playing his first 2 years at Illinois. He led the Commodores' backfield in 2018 and 2019 with a combined 355 carries for 2,272 yards and 21 touchdowns, while adding 21 catches for 440 yards and 3 touchdowns receiving. Vaughn averaged 3.7 yards per carry after contact in 2018 and an impressive 5.3 yards per carry after contact in 2019. From a metrics perspective, his college dominator rating, which is the percentage of the team's production, is in the top 10% of historical running back prospects. His target share in the top 25% of prospects indicates involvement as a receiver despite a season high of only 28 receptions. He was part of the action when Vanderbilt threw the ball. This should lead us to believe he has an opportunity to contribute as both a runner and a receiver for Tampa Bay. Former 2nd-round pick Ronald Jones is a threat after carrying the ball over 200 times last season. Peyton Barber's departure vacates about 10 carries per game. Dare Ogunbowale led the Bucs backfield with 46 targets last season, and he is returning. The offensive line in Tampa Bay is terrible for any runner. His short-term expectations will depend on whether or not he can unseat Rojo for the lead role. However, I think his long-term expectations look a little better. Some of his NFL comparisons are Kenneth Dixon, Elijah McGuire, Chris Thompson, Sony Michel, DJ Dallas, and Dalvin Cook. 2-7, D's Nuts. This is the first of 4 straight picks held by D's. With the 7th pick in the 2nd round, D's selects the number 1 ranked IDP player in this draft class, Chase Young, defensive end out of Ohio State, drafted by Washington. Chase Young is 6'5", 264 pounds. While he did not run the 40 at the combine, it has been reported that his 40 is a 4.94. He put up eye-popping numbers in his junior year in 2019 with 46 tackles, 21 of those for a loss, 16.5 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, and 3 pass breakups in 12 games. He is a rare prospect with elite skill set. He is a ferocious pass rusher on a perfect defense for him. Washington now has so many talented players in the line that it'll be tough to block them all. They'll get to have Young on one side and Montez Sweat on the other. He has an insanely quick first step and converts speed to power as good as anyone. He is every bit as talented as Myles Garrett and Joey and Nick Bosa. He is a smart defender which helps him read zone run plays and also anticipate runs before the snap. Unlike some other edge rushers in this class, Young is excellent against the run and will also help out and contain. Although we tend to focus on his pass rush, he is going to make a difference in the run game as well. A couple of player comparisons for him are Julius Peppers, Sean Merriman, Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, and Bradley Chubb. He is great at beating cut blocks and is cat quick with his hands and lateral movement. 2-8, D's Nuts. With his next pick, D's selects wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk out of Arizona State, drafted by the San Francisco 49ers. Aiyuk is 6 foot, 205 pounds. He has great metrics. He ran the 40 in 4.5. His burst score is in the 92nd percentile. He has near elite explosion with a broad jump in the 88th percentile and a vertical jump in the 92nd percentile. He has an overall spark score in the 76th percentile. His college dominator score is in the 82nd percentile, although he did go to a smaller school. He is an incredible yards after the catch athlete who averaged the 6th most yards after carry in all of college football. He was one of the top returners in all of college football. He has average speed, but good for his size and makeup. His long arms and big hands allow him to pluck balls out of the air. He also played both inside and outside snaps in college. Some of his weaknesses are his lack of routes ran in college. He was mainly a straight line route guy, so his route tree is unknown. His strength is also an issue and only put up 11 reps of the bench press at the combine. He has very little experience against man or press coverage. He only has 1 year of full-time college production and is still recovering from a core injury. He also joins an offense that was second to last in pass attempts per game, so there isn't much volume. From a physical perspective, he compares in size to Davante Adams and DJ Moore, but from a style perspective, he plays more like fellow 49er Deebo Samuel. Regardless, he is super talented. 2-9. D's nuts. At this point, D's is just adding depth to his already stacked team. D selects Utah running back Zack Moss, drafted by the Buffalo Bills. Moss is 5'9" and 223 pounds. He compiled 1,800 scrimmage yards and 17 touchdowns during his senior year. His college dominator and target share figures are in the top 20% of running back prospects historically, but a subpar performance at the NFL Combine decreased his dynasty value. He lands in an apparent timeshare with talented second-year back Devin Singletary, who is also his closest NFL comparison. Buffalo selected both in the third round just 1 year apart. Both have impressive college resumes, poor athletic testing, and a stout physical build. Although Singletary is about 20 pounds lighter and 2 inches shorter, they are both very similar. Zack Moss has a terrible athleticism score of 2.88, and Singletary's was an abysmal 1.73. However, Mark Ingram's score was also 2.57, so poor athletic testing can be overcome. Speaking of Mark Ingram, Moss is a weird blend of Kareem Hunt and Mark Ingram. He's not a flashy player, and there are a few holes in his game. His lack of long speed is his biggest flaw. Like Hunt, another third-rounder, he has great agility and elite contact balance, and like Ingram, he has power element to his game and is an asset as a pass catcher. He had 2 seasons in college with 28 or more receptions. He is the cousin of former NFL players Cinereese and Santana Moss. 2-10. D's nuts. With his final of 4 straight picks, it's time for D's to address the biggest need on his roster, and that is quarterback. He currently only has 1 quarterback on his team. He selects Los Angeles Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert out of Oregon. After missing on both Tua and Burrow, D's couldn't afford to let the third best quarterback in this draft class get past him here. Although we expect Tyrod Taylor to start the season as the starter, we're almost sure to see Herbert sooner rather than later. Herbert was a 3-star prospect and top 30 quarterback recruit in the 2016 recruiting class. He signed with the in-state Oregon Ducks, the highest profile school to extend a scholarship offer. He made an impact as a freshman, playing in 8 games and throwing for nearly 2,000 yards before starting 27 games in his final 2 years. He threw for over 10,000 career yards and had 95 touchdowns. He boasts a career touchdown to interception ratio of 4.1 to 1. His statistical metrics support his case as a quality prospect. His career quarterback rating and yards per attempt are both in the top 40% of NFL quarterback prospects, and his 99th percentile breakout age of 18.5 years is elite. His player comparison includes Josh Allen, Blaine Gabbert, Andrew Luck, and Daniel Jones. It is an athletic peer group that includes a top dynasty asset along with some young athletic prospects. Allen and Jones have already quieted skeptics and become legitimate fantasy assets. Herbert has questionable accuracy, but also has intriguing production. 2-11. Crows. With the 11th pick in the second round, owner Todd Tubbs selects Washington running back Tonio Gibson out of Memphis. The Crows need a running back, and this guy is so much fun to watch. Gibson is 6 foot, 228 pounds, and can absolutely fly with a 4.39 40, which is in the 98th percentile. His speed score is also in the 99th percentile. Gibson is arguably the most versatile offensive weapon in this draft class. He is a hybrid running back wide receiver, and in 2019, he needed just 71 touches from scrimmage to surpass 1,000 total yards. Pro Football Focus credits him with 16 broken tackles on 33 carries and 17 broken tackles on 38 receptions. Gibson's metrics profile is unique, given his hybrid role and limited body of work. Classification as a running back puts him in the historical top 12 percentile in terms of target share and in the 99th percentile of yards per carry. His early third down draft capital is also a positive. A near 50-50 split of collegiate carries to receptions highlights his versatility. The versatility will lead to plenty of opportunities in the Washington offense. With Ron Rivera now in Washington, I wouldn't be surprised to see Gibson used in a similar receiving back role as McCaffrey, and could be a PPR superstar. He closely compares to Joe Mixon in that both players are listed at 228 pounds with a BMI of around 30. Both are assets in the passing game, with second-day NFL draft capital. However, Mixon is a more polished runner and less of a hybrid player than Gibson. The biggest knock on Gibson is that he is a one-year wonder. 212, kicker lover. With his first pick in this draft, reigning league champion Brian Dalton selects Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver Bryan Edwards out of South Carolina. This is a bit of a homer pick here for the Raiders fan. It is a popular opinion that Edwards is the Raiders rookie wide receiver to draft in this class and will be their future wide receiver 1. Edwards is 6'3", 212 pounds, and has a college dominator score in the 94th percentile. His breakout age was at 17.8, which is in the 100th percentile. Many believe that he is the best wide receiver that the Raiders drafted and will be their future wide receiver 1. In his career at South Carolina, he had 234 receptions for 3,045 yards and 22 touchdowns. He is a refined and clean route runner with incredibly strong hands. He is great in contested catch situations and rarely loses 50-50 balls. He loves to engage when blocking and plays hard on every down. He is good at all 3 levels of the field. He has impressive short area quickness and burst and uses his hips, body, and hands together to create separation and leverage. Despite the lack of elite speed, he still has great run after the catch ability. He needs to be more physical in press coverage. Although he is a clean route runner, he is not fluid and needs more explosion out of his cuts. Needs to improve catching more with his hands and less with his body. Edwards is the second of 3 wide receivers selected by the Raiders and could be facing a lot of competition for targets in that offense, but I think he has the ability to stand out. His NFL comparison is Michael Crabtree. They have similar size and a lot of the same strengths. That is the end of the second round. Now we're going to enter our speed round in the third round of our mock draft. There will be no analysis or videos, just the picks. 3-1, Das Raiderhawk, Willie Gay, linebacker. 3-2, I'm your Huckleberry, Denzel Mims, wide receiver. 3-3, Fuck Paul Jackson, A.J. Dillon, running back. 3-4, Huck, Cole Kmet, tight end. 3-5, Spiteful Messiahs, Jordan Brooks, linebacker. 3-6, Win Loser Booze, Darrington Evans, running back. 3-7, Caden's team, Anthony McFarland, running back. 3-8, Das Raiderhawk, Laviska Shenault, wide receiver. 3-9, Crown Royal Knights, Chase Claypool, wide receiver. 3-10, I'm your Huckleberry, Jeremy Chin, safety. 3-11, Crows, Van Jefferson, wide receiver. 3-12, kicker lover, Antonio Gandy Golden, wide receiver. That is the end of our mock draft. Thanks for watching, and we can't wait to do this for real. Happy drafting.